Today we're going to take a look at risk from a little bit of a different perspective. We're going to incorporate some of these elements of uncertainty, but we're also going to begin to integrate stakeholders. And we're going to take a look and explore within our objectives of the role of uncertainty, but also the role of stakeholders in our entrepreneurial strategic decision making. And what else goes into risk beyond just you thinking internally about risk, but thinking a bit broadly about what else is in play and what are the other factors that involve that, and being able to get some of those external factors and other stakeholders into the equation. And so oftentimes we're presented of things like this where, we're looking at new opportunities. There are electric vehicle opportunities. There are mobile opportunities. There might be alternative energy opportunities. And we have to make decisions on are those the types of things that, while popular, it's a question of, is it for us? Is this something that we want to get into? Part of it's intuition. What do we mean by intuition? How do you define intuition? Have you heard of intuition? What's intuition?
Your first gut.
It's kind of that gut feeling or that first thought. What's an individualistic view? What's an individualistic view? Yep.
Looking in a way of being an individual and sort of doing things.
Define it without using the word individual.
Thinking of doing something yourself and taking more control of what you're doing.
It's an element of kind of taking control and deciding to do something, even if it's not necessarily endorsed or popular with others. Again, we've talked about ambiguity and confidence as well. So it's, again, bringing all of those to bear and making sure that we are able to recognize and see that we have all of these factors and that they're going to drive this element of either perceived uncertainty or perceived risk, and recognizing what the difference of those are. So I use the word perceived and I use the word objective. What's the difference in the two? Yep.
Objective is like free of bias.
Objective is free of bias and essentially the fact. It is what it is, and it's somewhat unarguable and unbiased. What is perceived?
It's more subjective.
Perceived is subjective. So it's influenced by kind of your personal ideas and thoughts and perspectives. And what that means is that, again, they are different. Now, they may result in the same outcome or the result decision for some people, but they are different. And we want to recognize that oftentimes it's perceived risk that drives the decision maker, more so than necessarily the objective element. And so when we look at the successes of new ventures, they certainly rely on choice. There's fast change. There's demand for decisions. And there's an element of being able to recognize that you're not going to have all the data, you're not going to have all the facts, that you need to perceive things, and that the measure of uncertainty and risk, again, is kind of in the eye of the beholder. So when we look at this, is launching a startup in the alternative energy market a good idea? Does your intuition, does your perception drive you to think it's a good idea or not?
It really depends on the idea.
Depends on the idea. Depends on the idea.
I'd say generally yes.
Generally yes, but not always yes.
I think you need a lot of money to start it off. So unless you are like Elon.
I didn't ask you if you need a lot of money. I just want to know, do you think it's a good idea? No. No. Okay.
I think it is because people are not thinking about.
So you said yes.
Yes.
So we vary from, well, it depends on the idea to, hold on, so it depends on the idea, could be, maybe, to a no, to a yes. So again, not a clear answer. It kind of depends on, well, what are we talking about? Are we talking about wind? Are we talking about solar? Are we talking about water or hydro? Are we talking about something else? So there's, again, a question of, well, it depends on what it is. And even within that, we can look at lots of stats. So when we look at lots of stats, we see trends emerging. We see that electric vehicles are growing. And again, this is a 2012 number.
Because they go by the 5-year interval.
Yep, so I'm seeing what the most recent was over here. But nonetheless, I would say this today might be a little bit dated, but it's still a relatively low number, but a rapidly emerging number. We see big moves here on 8.3% per year growth in energy that is clean energy. We see potential, not only in the difference of wind, 28 times more as far as wind technologies in the last 15 years or so, but that we have enough sun, particularly in this region, to power a fifth of the energy use in the U.S. And so in that way, again, when you begin to look at a lot of stats and look at pieces and potential, it feels right, it feels interesting, but we want to recognize that there are other opportunities there as well. And it's really a question, well, what is it that we're talking about when we're looking at new opportunities in alternative energy? There are lots of things you could do. You could focus on developing big devices, TVs and high-efficiency appliances in the home. You could do smaller things, high-efficiency light bulbs. You could do solar panels that'll go on your roof. You can do other things in the home that vary and not necessarily providing alternative energy, but participating in being able to measure it and manage it. And in that way, it's going to be these switches where you can program when your lights come on and when your lights go off, or when to moderate your air conditioner or your heat based on motion. Is somebody in the room? Is somebody in the home or not? So there are lots of ways you can play, and so this is just simply to integrate that between a simple question of alternative energy and is it a good idea or not really depends on, well, what exactly are you talking about? And how and where do you fit? And what's the competitive environment there as well? If we look deeper into solar panels, and if we were trying to decide, well, I'm interested in alternative energy, I think there's opportunity, feels like something that's going to grow, market forecasts show that it's going to grow, maybe you want to get in being either a manufacturer, distributor, seller, servicer of solar panels. So we see here some price points for 7,000 watt, and again, we're looking at the level of energy that these things generate. 7,000 watt solar panel, $38,000. If you want to buy one of these and put it on your house. Why would you do such a thing? You're not good looking, so why do you do such a thing? Yep.
Environmentally conscious.
So you're environmentally conscious.
Save money. Save money.
How are you saving money?
Because you don't have to pay for the electricity.
Okay, you're not paying as high electricity bill every month, depending on your home size, region of the country, a couple of $100s a month, that you're going to be able to save part of that cost, or perhaps all of that cost, by having solar panels.
But when you originally buy like the solar panel, doesn't like the cost of buying the solar panel equal like 10 to 20 years of like electricity? So wouldn't it just like not really saving money as much as you're just like spending all the money you would spend in one time?
There's a startup cost. You spend a lot of money now to hopefully save money in the long term. And the long term might be 20 years. But if you think you're going to live 20 years, and or you think you're going to live in the home that you're putting it in for 20 years, or that you think if I were to sell the home, I could make up part of my cost in that sale by adding this asset, then there are different ways that you may recover that cost. But yeah, you're not going to save $38,000 on your electricity bill next month. It's a long-term payoff. So, again, solar panels, an option. There's an option of wind. So if we compare apples to apples, 7,000 watt solar panel was 38 grand. What's 7 times 4,000?
28,000.
28,000. Well, I could get the same amount of wattage, I could get the same amount of energy by putting 7 windmills in my yard
And it would be cheaper.
and save 10 grand.
Do you have the space?
It depends on the person. To have a solar panel, what do you need? Typically a roof. If you live in an apartment, you're not going to hang this thing off your balcony. So in that way, again, you need a roof or some type of access. And if you're going to have a wind generator, you need space, and you can't line these things up right beside each other. Like if you're putting books on a shelf, there needs to be space between them for them to work properly. So in that way, you might need a couple of acres of land to kind of spread these things out as they should be. Which is better? If you're the entrepreneur, if you're trying to decide if I think I want to compete in one of these spaces, I want to manufacture solar panels or I want to manufacture windmills, which is better?
Solar panels.
Why solar?
More people have roofs than.
Okay. More people have roofs than acres, so while it's more expensive on a wattage basis, it feels like my market is bigger.
So what he said, and also some people might not live in a windy area, so it won't spin a lot, but everyone.
It's a everybody has sun,
Well,
Well, trees. They're working.
and that's a question. Think back a few slides. If you think about where we highlighted where the solar
I've never seen this.
sources were in the U.S., where is it? It's California, Arizona, Nevada. Just kind of think desert. You know, where are the deserts? There's often a lot of sun. Hard to get a lot of value out of solar panels in the northwest of the U.S. when it's rainy, or in the northeast if it's cloudy or snowy. So again, big piece of it depends on location and what market you're pursuing and what else is in that space. We also have other opportunities. You know what this thing is, right? Hot water heater. What's this thing?
Geothermal.
It's not you. Isn't that just like a
I will give you a hint. What is this?
hot water?
Hot water heater. What is this?
Cold water. Hot water heater.
Hot water heater. Very good. How is this a hot water heater?
is it a reheater?
Not a reheater. It does the exact same thing.
Does it take the energy from the sun to heat the water?
Doesn't have anything to do with the sun. Yep.
Faster.
It's fast. This fills up with 50 gallons of water and heats up the water, and then when you start using the water, it pumps out the hot water, refills with cold water, and heats it up again. This, essentially, it goes in, it's kind of superheated, and comes out hot, almost instantaneous. So it doesn't need to keep 50 gallons of water hot 24 hours a day. So in that way, we're seeing other technologies come to market that are not solar, not wind, not automotive, but that are things like this that are energy saving, that the result is arguably better. If you decide for some reason that you want to wash clothes, run the dishwasher, somebody's taking a bath and somebody else wants to take a shower, you might run out of hot water if you have this. You should not run out of hot water ever if you have this. So that's an added advantage. You may buy this because you want to be energy efficient. You may buy it because you want to be environmentally friendly. You might buy it because it simply works better. You like hot water. You may not care about the environment. You may not care about your electricity bill, but you don't want to run out of hot water. So in that way, when you begin to see that kind of intersection of people buy a product that is energy efficient, that helps them save money, but that is just simply better, that's a much easier sell. Teslas are better than many other vehicles. People buy them because they like the car, and it works. It happens to be energy efficient, depending on your perception of battery technology and what it takes to produce batteries. It happens to be independent of gasoline, so if that matters to you, you get that benefit. But it's also just a great performing vehicle, much as what we see with this technology. So when you go through and you think about these types of things, it's an element of thinking about, again, markets and use and how are people going to use it. Get beyond what's the specs on it and how many watts is it, but think about why would people buy it? Why would people not buy it? What are their options? What are their alternatives? What are their motives for buying? And again, intuition helps that. And for most people, as you get older, your intuition gets better. And it's fueled by past experiences of having seen some things and done some things before. This individualistic view, again, can be complemented and enhanced by having relationships with people that understand you and understand your perspectives, by doing things as a team as well. This element of ambiguity and being able to, operate effectively in that, again, comes with some level of experience too. If you've been in situations that have been high pressure before, if you've been in situations where there's a level of risk that you're operating within, it gets less risky. It gets more comfortable as you're doing it later. And then this element of confidence is something that emerges over time. When you interview or talk with successful entrepreneurs, many are highly confident. Why are they confident?
Because they've succeeded.
Because they've had success. So a bigger important question is, well, were they confident before they started the venture? So if you focus on people that have already started and done things, more than likely they're going to be confident because they did it. But we also want to think about, well, how can I build some level of confidence in the beginning before I do things? And that will help you be more comfortable in managing risk as well. Now, stakeholders is something that we haven't talked about a lot, but fundamentally these are other people that are your customers, your suppliers, your investors, other individuals that are part of the equation when you're trying to commercialize your concepts. And they play a role in that we want to understand what are going to be their reasons for wanting to participate, for not wanting to participate, and what are they going to be uncertain or concerned about. And the easy example is car seats. So who uses car seats? Who uses car seats? Babies. So you have babies that are in the car seat. Who buys the car seat? Typically a parent, a guardian, an adult, whomever is responsible for the child, buys it. What is the kid concerned about? What's the baby concerned about? Comfort. Is it comfortable? And if it isn't comfortable, then I'm going to let you know. What's the parent concerned about? What do you think their number one concern is? Safety. It's nice if it's comfortable. It's nice if it's affordable. I would like it to be pretty. But if it's unsafe, I don't want it. So what else are they concerned about beyond safety?
Price.
There's a price concern. What am I going to pay for it? Now, people will often pay a bit more of a premium for things for a baby than they will for themselves. but there is a price concern. They're probably hesitant to buy the cheapest car seat that's out there. What do we equate cheap with?
Unsafe.
Unsafe or just undesirable. We're kind of conditioned to think that, well, if it's cheap, it might not be that good. And it's whatever our definition of good is that might limit our interest in buying the cheapest thing. So cheap can work against you in some markets. What else are they concerned with?
Size of the car seat?
Probably size. We want it to be safe, but we want it to be somewhat convenient. If we're going to put this thing in car and take it out car and carry it around, you know, we want something that's of reasonable size and of reasonable weight. And then we begin to get into features and functions, and does the belt clip well, and do I like the color or the fabric and things of that nature. So fashion is somewhat further down the list. Not unimportant, but it's important to recognize, again, who are the stakeholders and what are their motives. And with that, we want to understand, when we look at new markets and as we look at business opportunities, for this, hand that to me. So who's the market for these bags, drawstring bags, book bag, cooler, laptop bag? You're going to wear this on your back? Okay. Who's the market for such a thing? Yep. What kind of students?
College students.
College students?
High school. Students who drink.
Students that need coolers? Yep.
Anyone who's really associated with Maryland.
Anyone associated with Maryland, again, if we have a Maryland brand on it, and we have a Maryland flag image on it, you're probably limiting yourself to people that are in the state of Maryland, from the state of Maryland, like the state of Maryland, and or University of Maryland, that are probably college students. I don't see me, what do you call it, rocking? I don't see me rocking this thing. But it's probably a college, arguably high school. What's the price point? $20. So fairly affordable. But it's recognizing, again, I have a specific market in mind. Should I go to a high-end retail store and try and put this on the shelf? Doesn't make sense. Not their market, not their customer. So recognizing, again, who's the market and what's of value to them, and I want something that is, you know, has the look and the feel, addresses some of these elements of durability. It's at a price point that's going to be attractive to that market, that's differentiated from competitors. Anybody else have something like this? Yeah. You have something there? And I see yours? Okay. So this is a competing product. You guys can see both of these pretty well. What's the difference? Let me just focus on these three. So what's the difference?
That one's more durable than that.
More durable. What else? Let me focus on these three again. This is insulated. This is just a piece of vinyl. So in that way, if you want a cooling property, if you want a padding property, I don't know that I would put a laptop in here and toss it around the room, but you certainly have more padding here than you have here. What else? Looks cheaper. They don't like your bag.
It was free, so it's free.
Okay, so free, you got your money's worth. So again, looks cheaper. Anything else?
A big design of
Okay, this has a much more design element.
desirable maybe.
Okay, so I'm going to give you this one for free. You're going to pay $20 for this one. And let's do this as a class. So you have two options, assuming you do not have either of these today. I have a free bag for you. And you carry this around for the semester. Or I have a $20 bag for you. So how many people would want, and you have to choose one. How many people would want free? 1, 2, 3. Okay, and how many people would want the 20? So even when faced with the option of free, probably 80% of you are going to want a $20 one. Okay, let's do the same exercise. This one is 50. Anybody would take 50 over free. Again, have to choose one. So in one, all right, two. These are the people that buy premium products. These are the people that buy a $100 purse that's arguably no better than a $10 purse. So in that way, again, some people will pay a premium, but you have to do the math of thinking about stakeholders and values and price points. Whose was this?
That's mine.
To recognize if $20 the right price, is $40 the right price, is $10 the right price. And it's thinking again about stakeholders, competitors, and to what extent people are going to adopt or not adopt what it is that you have in mind based on form and features and price and other elements. How do you learn or hear about such things, and when should you do such things? When should they, in this design of this product, pass it back up for me again? When should they decide what the price is? Today they say the price is 20. When should they have decided that?
Maybe after getting research of what, if this project has been already on the market, the style product is already in the market.
Okay.
What the price is.
So what are competitor prices for similar products? Okay.
Determining how many people want it.
Okay. I would need to get some sense of volume, because you'll find from manufacturers, my manufacturing costs might be $5 if I order 1,000, but if I can order 10,000, my manufacturing costs might be $3. So I want to get some sense of relative demand to get a sense for pricing and profitability. Yep.
I mean, I'd ask friends, family, how much they pay for it, and then try and figure out what.
You say it. So what would you be showing them to get a sense of what they would pay?
I would have manufactured it.
You would have manufactured it already without knowing what price you could charge for it.
I mean, I know a general price.
You'd know a general price. At what point should we begin thinking about price?
Prototype stage?
At the prototype stage?
Near the beginning, right?
At conception. Don't spend money on a prototype if you don't think you can get the price that you need. Don't do small-scale manufacturing if you don't think you can achieve the price that you need. And the product itself. I would want to get some sense of interest in the product before I'm spending time manufacturing it and having to pay prototyping and things of that nature. And the way you can do that, again, is getting out, talking to people, talking to prospective customers, doing some level of surveying, interviewing, etc., to get a sense of how people like what they have now, how interested are they in something new, what they may pay for that. And all of these things begin to help you formulate a sense of, do you perceive there to be an opportunity, or is there a real opportunity there? And so in that way, when you begin to connect these elements of you reduce uncertainty by getting feedback from the market, it gives you some insights that you might be onto something. And that you don't try and sell to everybody. So for this bag, I could ask my mother what she thinks. I don't really care. Why don't I care about her opinion on this?
She's not your target audience.
She's not in my market. She probably thinks it's awful, that it's terrible, that it's cheap, and that she'd never use it. And it should be smaller, and it should be leather, and it should have a fancy logo on the side of it. But not my market. So in that way, again, recognize that as you're getting input and feedback from stakeholders, make sure they are stakeholders and that they are people that either understand the market. Now, if my mother worked for Target, and if she was responsible for bags and luggage, would I care what she thought?
Yes.
Absolutely, because that's her business. That's the market that she knows. So also recognize that you want to get feedback from prospective customers, but also getting feedback from experts in the area is very valuable as well. And that will help you go through and kind of form and shape some of these elements as related to thinking about how do you reduce risk, improve certainty, and make. So in summary, when we look at entrepreneurial behavior, we've talked about risk as a central element of that. And it's something that, again, receives a lot of airplay when you look at the study of entrepreneurship. But there are 4 fundamental things that we would encourage you to think about as you're thinking about the risks that you see within your venture. One is certainly how high are the risks? To what extent can they be quantified? To what extent they can be measured? And also how high are they with reference to the opportunity cost that you're engaging in? Secondly, the other side of the coin is naturally the reward. Is the reward significant enough? Is it a financial reward? Is it a personal satisfaction? Is it an impact within your community? Is it an impact on stakeholders that you care about? So looking broadly at the rewards and being able to reconcile how those rewards compare to the risk. There's also the question of consequences. If it doesn't work out, if the venture fails, what happens then? And in that way, when we begin to think about that in the beginning, it helps us, again, kind of resize that risk. And also it helps us integrate this area of opportunity cost and what would we do at that point. And we can be planful in thinking about what are the various exit scenarios if things should not work out. And then lastly, were all of the elements of the decision considered? And so this is certainly an area where having a broad team that you're working with by engaging with some advisors and mentors and asking them what they like about the venture, but also asking them what they think are the pitfalls. What do they think are the risks? And that way they may bring to bear some things you've thought about or some things you haven't thought about. And so in that way, by looking broadly at the scenario, we can get a more accurate assessment of the risk and be more thoughtful about our entrepreneurial behavior in that risk, uncertainty, and stakeholder environment context.